It takes a lot of time and effort to make sure that your body is ready for a big Gran Fondo event. So it makes sense to also spend a smaller amount of time making sure that your bike is also up to the job. So here's a list of things that you should check through a few days in advance of the big event. A clean and well lubricated bike will be both more efficient and also much quieter. The former will make you feel better about riding the bike yourself, and the latter will be both good for you and those riding around you. That's really quite a simple job to do. So all you need is a bucket, some water, a sponge, some decent brushes, and some sort of bike specific cleaner. And then all it is a case of drying the whole thing off, including the chain and drivetrain, probably with an old towel or something, and then lubricating it all with some bike specific lube. Now, it's essential at all times when you're riding that you're able to stop when you need to. But it almost applies even more to an event like a Gran Fondo, where you'll be around other riders who could swerve or stop when you're least expecting it. So make sure that your brakes have got a nice smooth action and that they do indeed stop your wheels whenever they need to. Also, have a close look at the brake pads themselves. There should be plenty of wear left on them, whether you're using disc brakes like this bike or the standard rim brakes. If it looks like the rubber's getting quite close to the metal, then it's going to be a good idea to replace those pads well in advance of the day itself. Correctly indexed gears are also going to make the world of difference to the enjoyment of your Gran Fondo. Now, there's nothing more frustrating than riding along with your gears jumping about, or worse still, simply not being able to physically get the gear into the one that you selected. And actually, with the aid of our playlist of maintenance videos, this is something that you should be able to do relatively easily at home on your own. The next thing to consider is that you've got the right gears for the job in hand. So if you live in quite a flat area, you might want to consider investing in a cassette with a wider ratio if you're going to a Gran Fondo with some long, steep climbs. This is going to make you far more comfortable when you're climbing. The next thing to have a look at are the tyres, which are of course really important since they're the only contact point between you and the ground. So you want to check them for wear first and foremost, because just like car tyres, the rubber will wear down over time, which will mean you've got less grip and also you'll be much more susceptible to punctures. And whilst you're at it, you can also have a closer check to see if there are any small flints or stones lodged in the rubber itself. And if it is, simply get a small pick like this, and you should be able to just flick them out. Now, if you've got a gaping hole there afterwards, or quite a small hole should I say, you can then try putting some thin super glue in to seal it up. But if the hole is too big, then I would recommend purchasing a new tyre before the event. The next thing to do is to give your wheels a quick turn to make sure that they're spinning freely. But if they stop quite quickly like that, it could be something very simple, such as the wheel not being centred in the dropouts, or maybe if you're using rim brakes, that you just need to centre the caliper. Now, if you do all of that and you still find that the wheel is rubbing against the brake pads, or even worse still, the inside of the frame or the forks here, then what you've probably got is a buckled wheel. Now, once again, we have got a video here at GCN which explains how to true a wheel, but if you're not particularly experienced in bike mechanics or not very confident, we would recommend taking it to a local bike shop to get it sorted out there. The next thing you want to do is go over all of the nuts and bolts on the bike and make sure they're tightened to the correct torque. I mean, the last thing you want to happen is for your saddle to be slowly slipping down, for your bars to tip down, or even worse, for your saddle to come off altogether, or one of your pedals. Now, we would recommend that you invest in a torque wrench. Something like this is quite cheap these days. What this will do is make sure that you don't over tighten it, because that is something that modern components can be susceptible, particularly carbon and lightweight parts. Just go over them all and make sure they're at the correct tightness. Having two bottle cages is also pretty essential when you're doing a long ride. So if, like me, you've only got one on your bike at the moment, then make sure you invest and mount another one before the day itself. That way you'll be sure not to run out of essential fluids between the feed stations. Right, we also want to make sure that the headset isn't loose here. It's a really easy thing to check. So just put your front brake on with your bike on the ground, which in this case is my right brake here, and then move the bike forwards and backwards. Now, if you can hear a knocking sound, or if you can feel a slight movement when you put your hand here, then it's probably slightly loose, and it's a really easy thing to fix. So all you need to do is loosen the stem bolts here on the steerer tube, and then the top cap here, gradually tighten it up, checking until there's no movement. And at the point there's no movement, just check it still turns freely. And then you just need to do the side bolts back up, making sure that your stem's straight with the wheel. Lastly, you want to make sure that you're going to carry enough spares with you to be self-sufficient through the ride itself. So we personally recommend using a nice neat saddlebag to put them in. That way you'll have more space in your rear pockets for things like food, your phone, your wallet, and also a rain cape. Now at a minimum you want to take with you 2 inner tubes, some tyre levers and a multi-tool, and also some self-adhesive patches just in case you happen to go through all your spare inner tubes. And you will of course also need a pump. Now you can put a mini pump in your back pocket, but as you can see here, I've also got that mounted onto my frame just to save space. Now, if you would like to see that video that I talked about just a few moments earlier, how to index your gears, you can find it just in that top corner there. Alternatively, if you'd like to know how to correctly select the right lube for your bike, you can find that video just down that way. Or you might also want to subscribe to GCN because it's free and there'll be loads more handy videos just like this one, and all you've got to do for that is click on the GCN logo somewhere on this screen.